Once again, my name is Julian Morales, and we are here with Paul Torres today, who is a member of Real Talk and a speaker. And he is here today to tell us a little bit about himself. So, Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us your story about how you ended up, or the story that led you to your incarceration, please.
Okay, well, my incarceration, I've first of all, I've been 18 months released. Uh, May the 1st will be 18 months to the day. I never thought I'd be incarcerated. I was about 37 years old when I became incarcerated. That's pretty late, actually, according to statistics. Um, my issue wasn't with gangs, wasn't with selling dope. I used a lot of drugs, but I never got in trouble for it. Never got with possession or anything like that. So my issue was a lot with my personality, my anger,
Right,
my prone to violence. Okay, unfortunately, it was not just violence with men, and it was with women as well. And so when you commit domestic violence, unfortunately, the state of Texas is very strict on domestic violence, as it should be. And so um, I've been in trouble for domestic violence 3 times. It was the third time that sent me to prison. There was no more talking my way out of it with the
right.
district attorney. No more probation, community service, go see BIP counseling. BIP stands for Battering Intervention and Prevention Program. There was no more of that. Okay. It was all, you're going to do time, and you're going to do time so you can reflect on what you be doing. And I said 3 times domestic violence, but in reality, it was more than that, probably double that. And then not including all the assaults that I've had with just, at a club, at a bar, at school, when I was younger, just out in the streets, road rage, all that stuff. So it's been a reoccurring event in probably for the first 3 decades of my life. And it
Yes.
wasn't until incarceration that I took advantage of the programs that were available at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And I made the choice to continue my program after incarceration.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's an important thing, right? Is sticking to the programs that are there for us in prison, that we take advantage of while we're in there, because you can do a lot of things in prison. People really don't understand the life in prison, right? It's a day to day life. You have work, you have school, you have rec time, dinner time, lunchtime, and then you have a bunch of leisure time where you can take that time to grow, right? To educate yourself, to learn things like you did, to prevent taking those steps to prevent you from having those anger issues again and relapsing, right? So when you went to, how long was your prison sentence for there, Paul?
2 years, 2 years, and I did almost day for day. I know statistically speaking, that's for a third degree felony in the state of Texas. That's the minimal time. So it really, in reality, was not a lot of time. But you see, for someone like me who used to be a small business
Right.
owner who was involved in nursing and professional caregiving of the elderly, assisted living, foster care with the elderly, I did that for 7 years prior to my incarceration. Before that, I worked for the city of El Paso in the water department. Before that, I worked at Western Refining for DuPont as a plant operator. So I I knew how to get good jobs. I knew how to you know, uh, market myself and my skill sets and so forth. But you see, I lived 2 different lives. I lived a double life. I lived the life that I was a good person in society, good in the community, but there was a dark side to me. And that's a side of me that finally came to an end when I went to prison. And so 2 years to some people, some guys got 20, some guys got life sentences. But you see, It's all this. Even one day
Yeah.
can change your life. One day being incarcerated can change your life.
Yes. Yes. So Paul, let me ask you this: with the 2 years that you did, because like you said, a lot of people do 15, 16, 17 years, 20, 30 years, right? But even a month gone from your regular life, you lose out on a lot of things. So with you being gone with 2 years, being in the medical profession, how did that affect you once you got out, with all the losses you took, the loss of your profession, the loss of your business, how did that affect you and what steps did you take to get back on the right track?
Okay, for one, having a criminal record, not just a misdemeanor, having a felony, especially a violent felony, uh, you nobody can trust you. You won't even get a phone call follow up for an interview. Uh, if you apply for any kind of licenses, uh, they're going to deny you because of it's a very recent event. And even if 10 years have passed, it's still very questionable and very doubtful if this person is truly reformed and rehabilitated. So when it comes to the medical
Yeah.
field, I actually, I basically shot myself in the foot with that. I can't go back and work with people with elderly. I can't work with that. Not in the sense that in the legal aspect. Yeah, I could if a member of my family is sick or ill and they need help, I can do that. But if for the general public, I can't assist people like that anymore. So yes, I have limited myself to a lot of options and opportunities because of the choices that I made.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a big thing that I always talk about is the choices that we make, right? So with you ending up in prison, I know you're on a personal level, so I'm gonna ask you this. How did that affect the relationship with you and your family? Those relationships, such as I don't know if you were married at the time, children, parents. How did those relationships get affected by your choices of wanting to be angry, drink, and act that stuff out?
Okay, that is probably the hardest part of the punishment. Getting the 2 years, that was a shocker, but it was also a blessing. Like you said, I honestly going in that courtroom for the third time, being a violent offender for the same type of crime, there I should have gotten 10 to 20 years easily. I did the
Right,
wise thing and hire a private attorney as opposed to a public defender. I'm not advocating for either or.
right,
That's on you. But the thing is that I did get a very good sentence, but I used my time wisely with that. Now the 2 years is nothing compared to the implications, ramifications, consequences of the results, the aftermath of the results to my behavior. So, in other words,
right.
now not only did the state of Texas want their time from me, and they got their time from me, but the mother of my son chose to terminate my parental rights for my only living child. His name is Jacob. He's 6 years old right now. He was 4 years old at the time. So, what I'm saying is, civil court was more harsher than criminal court. And when I heard my rights being terminated by the judge in February of 2019, that was worse than all the time, all the even the fights I got into with the sheriff's officers and the TDCJ officers, and the fights I got in with the gang members on all the rules and regulations and the politics involved with prison and jail. All of that was nothing
Yeah,
compared to the gavel and the petition being granted for me losing my child like that. And so if I could do it all over
yeah,
again, I definitely would, not because of the time, but because now I may have to wait till my son is a teenager, an adolescent, until he's a young adult for he and I to even have a good relationship again.
So let me ask you this: that now that you're talking about that, right? So I had Aaron on last week, and we touched a little bit on this. Is the sentences that were served, right? So we're not only served a sentence to do prison time. A lot of us are given federal probation or parole as well. Then on top of that, we're sentenced by our peers, right? When we hit the streets, we're sentenced
Right.
by society. We're sentenced by the way people look at us and treat us, and the opportunities that we get. But you know, with everything that happened to you and you knowing that there's hope that one day your son will reach out to you, what are the steps that you're taking to be prepared so that when he does reach out, you are that man that no one has talked to him about? You're not the same person that his mom has been putting in his ear, right? Or anybody else that knows him, or why he understands that your parental rights were taken away, right? What steps are you taking to not be that person and to be a different person so that when he does reach out, you're the kind of person that he wants to have a relationship with?
Okay. So for first and foremost, I want to make it very clear that I have come to accept that I am not against what my son's mother did to me. I think that
That's good.
she did the right thing. She wasn't wrong for pursuing legal matters against me to ensure that I was not a danger or a threat to my very own son, because she didn't know if I was
Right.
going to continue drinking. She didn't know I was going to continue doing drugs, smoking, snorting, whatever, all the things that are involved in the party life, popping pills.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, she witnessed that firsthand even before she was pregnant, and so she was
Right.
scared, and she had to do what she had to do, and so I accept that. I do not hold a grudge against her. Now, going to your question,
Respect that.
what am I doing now? Well, as soon as I received the shocker back in February of last year, I had a choice to make. I could have said, well, I got nothing more to lose, and I could do whatever Paul wants to do, like he's always done for his whole life, for 40 years of his life. Paul has always done whatever he wants to do. A very selfish person, always putting Paul first, above everything and anybody else. But the other
Right.
choice was to go down a path of success after incarceration. And that path was starting to take the right steps in the right direction, was continuing those programs, anger management, continuing to seek counseling, both faith based and secular counselors, continuing to go to my AA meetings and my NA meetings. For those of you that don't know, maybe there's some young kids that are watching this show. NA is Narcotics Anonymous, and AA is Alcoholics Anonymous. For also Celebrate Recovery, which is a faith-based type of NAAA group. I continue to go to Bible studies. I continue to hang out with people that are non-drinkers, non-drug users, people like yourself, Julian, people who in society and community leaders that have stepped up and gone above and beyond than just rehabilitation. They've actually wanted to show another human being how to not just uh, get well, but how to become community leaders. You
Amen.
yourself know that I have become a community leader myself within my own church. I don't mean I'm not
Yeah.
here to preach. I'm just here to say that religion is a big part of my life and will continue to be. Um, so when the years roll by, and they will, my son may be a teenager and he may go up to his mom and says, Mom, you know what? I want to know my dad. I want to meet my dad. And she has to be prepared to know whether or not if it's going to be okay and if it's going to be safe. And
Yeah.
first of all, she needs to make sure I'm not in prison and that I'm not
Yeah.
running in the streets or continuing to, live place to place and job to job and just, just trying to make a living any way I can. I need to
Right.
really set an example as the years go by so that old Paul back in 2017, 2016, 2015, 2014, 2013 is not the same Paul that's going to be there ready to meet his son again for the first time. And he's going to
Right.
be a man who's going to have a very good job, a very good career, of which I've already started to do, and that's something we can talk about in a minute. This, that hey, he's established a life for himself. He's put his crime and criminality life behind him. He's no longer
Right.
drinking. He's got clean time. He's got sober time, and all his friends are nothing but positive influences. And not only
Right.
that, but he's started his own family. Currently, I'm engaged to Lupita, of whom you know, you and your wife. She's got two beautiful
Congratulations.
daughters. Thank you very much. She's got two beautiful daughters. One's about to be 22 next month. The other one is 12, and they have filled a huge. God has allowed them to fill a huge emptiness and void in my life because of the absence of my son. But
Right.
God, I just feel like so long as I continue to do the right thing and make the right choices, my heart is going to change, and I'm going to have these beautiful things in my life. And as opposed to having to go to court, I remember, who wants to go to court when you can get up and go to work and come home and be with your loved ones?
Right. It's that easy. I used to. I
Yep.
used to tell. I used to tell my wife before I changed that it was easier to be bad than it is to be good. Right. And now that I'm good and not good but better, well, and on the right path, then now I feel like it's easier to be good because when you go the hard way, it seems easier, but it ends up being the hardest thing to do, man. Doing time, losing relationships, losing things that you thought you built from dope money, such as homes, cars, clothes. When you get out to nothing, it's harder to be good. And you know what? For those of you that have done it all your life and have never been in trouble, I commend you. For those of you changing now, taking those steps, taking the hard route, narrow is the path, and people take the road. Nobody wants to take the road less traveled, right? And it's hard to do um, stay straight, and it's even harder to stay straight, I believe, with the stuff that we've been through, right, with our past, those tendencies that we have inside of us. And I commend you for what you're doing. Another thing I wanted to bring up is, Paul, I know you just graduated from truck driving school, and we're actually lucky to have you on today. It's your first weekend back since you got your license and you went out for the first time, so congratulations. I wanted
Thank
to
you.
ask you, what did it take to get your truck driver's license, having a felony? And two, what sacrifices did you have to make in order to make this happen? Like, I know a lot of guys get out and they're not willing to do the night school thing. They're not willing to do the extra work, do the extra hustle, and have a low paying job. Meanwhile, sacrificing the nice things and taking the hard route. I imagine, because I've been there. I've been out 10 years now. It took me 6 years to really gain traction, and here you are doing it sooner. I'm really proud of you. Really happy. But can you give
Thank
us
you.
some insight as to your sacrifices and what all it took to get your license? And then third, do you love what you're doing, and how happy are you to be home this weekend?
Awesome. Okay, so let me start. So yes, the first 2 months right after being released on parole, uh, nobody. I must have submitted about 50 applications online because nobody does paper applications anymore. But because of my healthcare background, I was able to get a job at Meridian Medical Supply. Shout out to them. They're good people, small business in El Paso.
Support
They
local.
Yep, the local business. They were willing to take me on. Let me tell you, it was for minimum wage, and sometimes I wouldn't even get 40 hours a week. Sometimes it was just 20 hours. But I took whatever I could.
Yeah.
They had me selling and doing customer service for medical supplies, obviously. And because I have a background and knowledgeable in those supplies, I did pretty good. I was with them for 13 months. It wasn't until I started doing warehouse work in the back for them too, shipping and receiving, and doing some delivery with their delivery vans. Is when I got the idea. Says, hey, well, why don't I look into becoming a truck driver? So shout out to Western Technical College, only because I went to a lot of I interviewed a lot of recruiters from a lot of schools in El Paso. Let me remind you that I interviewed them; they didn't interview me. Okay,
Yes.
that's what I encourage every prospective student is to interview the school, because you're going to be attending there, and you're going to be paying them. Okay, it's not the other way around. So
Yes.
you need to interview them and do your homework. So I went with them because they did have a night school program for 10 weeks. It started last August, and I graduated in November of last year. Uh, and it wasn't easy. I had to make a decision. Do I do diesel mechanic? Do I do welding? All kinds of building trades and stuff like that. And a lot of these programs would take at least 2 years to complete. And a lot of these programs were like anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 in
Wow.
financial cost. And so I wasn't willing to incur such a massive debt so early on after my incarceration. I says, let me start off slow. Let me take it easy. I says, let me get into something that I can afford, and use that as a stepping stone, as the first rung on the ladder. And then from there, maybe I can climb even higher. So I decided to do
Right.
truck driving. Why? Because believe it or not, they are what you call second chance companies. And second chance
Yes.
companies, not to sound political, but has to do with the First Step Act that President Donald Trump signed into law back in 2017. And because of that, there are companies that are getting tax credits and tax breaks in order to hire and train uh, former felons, convicted felons. And so I was one of those. So
Yes.
I couldn't get just any trucking job, and I tried. It didn't work. But Western Express, shout out to them from Nashville, Tennessee. They were willing to take me on, and as soon as it took a while though, because understand, I just didn't have domestic violence in my background. I also had a DWI, and and that was also recent.
Right.
So I had to wait. I had to wait till this past February for the 3 year mark to pass. It has to be a minimum of 3 years, where most companies want at least 5 years. Some companies want 10 years of a clean driving record, much less a DWI.
Yeah.
And so with this second
Yeah.
chance company that recently got put into law, um, I was able to, I had to undergo rigorous drug testing. Sometimes they'll do a hair sample, some they'll do a urinalysis, whatever they choose to do. And so they need to make sure that they're going to put an at-risk driver, so long as he's rehabilitated. It's been 3 years since he's had an incident. If he can keep it like that, we'll give him a chance. And so, yes, February 29th, I flew out to Nashville, Tennessee. March 1st, I became an official driver, started the training program. And
Nice.
for the last 2 months, I visited 28 states. I've seen a lot of cities. I've seen a
Nice.
lot of highways. I've met a lot of people, both friendly and unfriendly, helpful and not so helpful. But you know what? I'm fitting
Yeah.
right in. I am fitting right in, and I'm learning the ropes. I'm learning what it takes to do, because being a truck driver isn't just getting in the truck, turning the key on, and let's go. That's not how it is. There's a lot of Department
Yeah.
of Transportation rules and regulations. There's a lot of things that you do have to do at the same time, simultaneously. You have to be very safe. You have to inspect the truck. You have to inspect your load. I'm a flatbed operator. That means that I have very heavy loads that are either strapped on with nylon straps or chains, and I got to make sure that
Yeah.
that thing is on there securely, because if it falls off, guess what? I'm going to prison. I'm going back to prison. So I have to be sober minded. I have to be alert, and I have to be aware
Yeah,
of who's around me and making sure I maintain a good, safe speed and a good, safe distance between other vehicles. But it's been a very rewarding job and career. It is very different from the medical field, very different from the things I used to do in the past. But you know what? I just stay humble.
very.
I stay humble, and I stay teachable, and I can see that I'm going to be very successful in this career. And let me just point out one other thing. The only thing that makes this all possible and bearable to get up every day and do this is because of the support that I have from my very own family, especially my mother
Yes,
and my two sisters, and I have my
that's
fiance and
good.
her two daughters. They are the backbone of my support, and that's why every morning I wake up and I choose to do the right thing.
That's good. That's good, brother Paul. Thank you for coming on and sharing with us, and thank you for being a truck driver and delivering stuff during this time. I know you just got in
Yep.
last night or night before last, so I know you've been out there with this COVID, and we thank you for working and keeping us supplied. Now, Paul, before we go, I always leave our viewers with the story, and my guest, you're lucky enough to hear it firsthand. So I always leave them with the story, whether it's sad, it's happy, it's scary, about a time in prison. You know, that one time in band camp. So here we go. I'm gonna tell my tale today, and this tale starts in a prison called Safford, Arizona. I was in Safford, my last bid. That's where I got out. You guys, I'm going 10 years this Cinco de Mayo. I got out
Hey,
of there Cinco de Mayo 2010, and that prison was a very different prison. It was a low security prison, something that I had never experienced before going to the tuna. So there was a lot of freedom, but I was tattooing this guy, and this is how nasty prison is, you guys. And when you're in there, I don't know why I even did it. I'm knowing that I can infect this guy. I'm knowing the surroundings aren't good, but we did it anyways. So we go into the shower stall. So I'm about to tattoo him. I'm tattooing him standing up. One, I'm uncomfortable. Two, yeah, two is it's dirty. You've seen the bathrooms or public restrooms. It's freaking nasty, right?
mm-hmm.
So I'm tattooing the guy. The guard walks by, catches me with the tattoo gun, and I try to hide it, and he caught me with it, and they give me a shot. Well, when the cop comes to give me a shot, he catches me with another tattoo gun, and I try to get crazy and fight him, and I end up getting whomped up by like five guards over a tattoo gun.
Uh-huh.
It's a silly story. It's silly to get a whooping over a tattoo gun. That was my livelihood, though. That's how I made my money in there. You know, a lot of family members don't send money when you're locked up. People get tired of doing it. I understand. So yeah, I got in a fight with the guards over a tattoo gun after tattooing a guy in the shower. You know, nasty, nasty, nasty. That's the kind of nasty stuff that goes on in there. Before we go, everyone, we will be doing an interview on Tuesday with our founder of Real Talk Youth Impact Program. Her name is Cherie Cornell. She will be on Tuesday at 7 p.m. and then Thursday at 7 p.m. Since this is Real Talk and I can only lead by example, I'm showing everyone that my family, just like you said right now, Paul, support is huge. And my brother's coming on Thursday, and our segment will be called A Look from the Other Side. And we get to hear my brother's side of all of my stories about going to prison and all the bad stuff I did. Now we get to hear from my brother's side what he went through, the hurt, the pain, the anger of seeing his brother continuing to do these bad things. So next Thursday, join us at 7 p.m. as my brother Oscar Morales comes on to give his side of my story. And on Tuesday with Cherie Cornell here on Real Talk, Real Topics. Until then, be kind to one another. Love your neighbor. And three, as I always say, love your children. Hug on them. Don't tell them you love them, but show them you love them. Until next time, this is Julian Morales. Thank you for watching Real Talk, Real Topics. Brother Paul, thank you for coming on.
All right, man. Thank you.
You have a good one.
You
Bye
too.
bye.
Bye bye.